Welcome to Las Vegas once again. Vegas strong and fearless. Vegas strong and fearless. All right, Webmaster, you got me? We're here in Las Vegas and things are looking good, looking up. And I hope where you're finding yourself, it's a good situation. And all this businesses are opening up and casinos are opening up and all this virus stuff is passing, and this too shall pass. As I mentioned in my other show, I hope you're looking at my other show. It's a church online, the Living Kingdom Church, the brand new church online. You can join us and be a part of this church. And we're talking about trials and tribulations, and that's what's happening today. And one trial has passed us by, but another trial is going to come your way. And I hope you're ready for that particular trial. If you're going through a trial right now, you may be. Maybe someone in a hospital, someone's sick or unemployment. As always, life is a trial. It's a trial. And you need to be firm. And my belief to be firm is spiritual, to be spiritual. And my show and the other show teaches how to become firm in Jesus Christ. But today, on this show, Vegas Strong and Fearless, we're going to be talking about the subject of mind over matter. The mind. Last week we were talking about the spirit, and then the week before the body, and this time we're going to talk about the mind. But before I begin the show, every week on my other show, and including this show, I make it a point to say the Father, the Lord, the Holy Spirit, and I are one. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit are one with me. Now, why is that important? Because that oneness, that unity, gets strong, and you don't need a church building per se. You don't need to be among believers. More power to you if you are. But you can be strong in your faith in the Godhead, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and myself. You can become one. I taught a while back a particular show on substance, the formless substance, which is God. You probably don't remember the show, and maybe you didn't even see it, but I taught that God's substance, His thought, created a formation, created a motion, created a creation, and that's how we came to life. Well, you have the same substance. My father and I, my earthly father and I, we were one because of his substance. He gave some of that substance to me when I was born, mental substance, and because of that substance, I can create a formation or form something in my thought, begin a motion, and create a creation. Well, that's what I want you to do also in your life. Today we're going to be talking about mind over matter. Two words I want to talk to you about, or give you. And I want you to walk around with these two words. Thought, form. Thought, form. And that thought begins in your mind, not in your brain. Remember, I mentioned in the past, the mind is separate from the brain. The mind is not an organ. The brain is an organ. We're going to be looking just for a few minutes of three great men that utilized their mind over matter. And all these three men had a definiteness of purpose. In order for you to be great, in order for you to achieve, you need to have a definiteness of purpose. You got to have an understanding of where you're going, what do you want to accomplish, what do you want to see develop in your life. And that's anytime you meet great individuals. By the way, you got the same ability, you have the same greatness, you have the same opportunity, you have the same substance as these three men that I'm going to mention. And these three men had a definiteness, a purpose. It had nothing to do with their heritage, it had nothing to do with their bloodline, it had nothing to do with their where they were born, their environment. It had no. It was the thought process. I'll give you an example. You have two men, two women, maybe living in a situation in a slum area. But one becomes rich. The other one doesn't become rich. What's the difference? Had nothing to do with the environment. Had nothing to do with where they're living. Is this guy over here, this woman over here, utilized the thought process much, much better than this one over here. So you have the same mind as these great individuals that you consider great in history and in the world. Three men. That's all I want to talk about. I can give you a whole bunch of men, but there's three men I want to talk about. Number one, George Burns. Now, I love comedy. I love to go stand-up comedy. I like to go to watch it on TV. But one of my favorite comedians was always George Burns. I remember I saw George Burns one day in a show with Johnny Carson. And after he was interviewed and he did this little comedian show, another guest came out, and the three of them sat there, and this other guest began to contradict or disagree with George Burns, and he wanted to argue with George Burns. And I was sitting there, I said, oh my goodness, he doesn't know who he's going up against. George Burns had a mind that was just fantastic. And he just shredded this guy and made him feel so bad. I felt sorry for the guy, because after he was finished with him, his attack on this particular guy, this guy learned. George Burns was a comedian. Funny, funny, funny. You need to understand in your mind, in your thought process, to learn how to laugh. You need to learn how to enjoy humor. You need to not be so serious all the time. There's some people that are just too serious. They don't know how to laugh. That's why comedians like Bob Hope and George Burns and all these great comedians, they live, Groucho Marx, they live for a long time because they didn't take life so serious. Do you take life serious? Their mind and their thought process overcame much matter that people probably were saying, because George Burns, he lived to be 100 years old. That's a long time. So he went through wars and presidents and depression. He lived through economic situations that might have brought people down. Not him. George Burns learned how to use his comedy. He had a definiteness of purpose. And what was it? He said, because I saw his biography, he said, I'm going to be the funniest man in the world. Definiteness of purpose. That was his focus. That was his attention. That was his thought process. I'm going to do this. And a lot of people said, no, you're just wasting your time, Mr. Burns. And when he was younger, remember, he lived to be 100 years. But he kept He stuck with it. And you know, George Burns smokes 15 cigars a day. Every time you saw George Burns, he had a cigar. Now, I don't recommend that, but the point is, he never lost track of who he was and where he wanted to land and where he wanted to go. He fulfilled, he accomplished his task because he had a definite purpose. Mind over matter. George Burns. Do me a favor. In your quiet time, look up George Burns in Google or library, and you're going to be fascinated by this man, how he enjoyed life. 100 years. Now, how old are you? I don't know. But if you say, I want to live 100 years and I want to enjoy my life, I want to have a rich life, a life that is full of abundancy and jubilee and just a wonderful life, you can do it. You can do it. Whatever comes your way, be it sickness, be it trials, be it people that let you down, people that leave you, people that come into your life and go out of your life. Remember, at the end of the day, when you go to bed, you're all alone. Just you and your maker. So, you might as well treat yourself like a king. You might as well treat yourself like enjoy your presence, enjoy yourself. I try to. You know, all these people that are going to let you down, and there are going to be a lot of people that let you down, all these people that leave you, all these people, trials and tribulations. You got to look within self, because that's where it begins, within self. And the hour will take care of itself. George Burns. I love him. Great comedian. The other guy I want to think about and talk about, he didn't live to be 100. Lived a short life. The holistic individual who we're talking about. Remember? The mind, the body, the spirit. I put George Burns in that category of the mind, the mental. But the guy I'm talking about right now is, I put him in the physical, the body. And that was Kobe Bryant. I love basketball. In fact, before I went off to study and become a theologian, I wanted to be a coach. In my high school years, they would ask me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a coach. Because I love sports. I love baseball. I love basketball. I used to, the Warriors, grew up in the Bay Area. And so Kobe Bryant, when he went to the Lakers, because I didn't like the Lakers because they always beat my Warriors. But after a while, after he passed away in a tragic way, I began to study a little bit about Kobe Bryant. And I began to realize this was a great ball player. 17 years old, out of high school, he went into the National Basketball Association, into the NBA. 17 years old. He's not the first one, by the way. There were other folks like LeBron James. There's quite a few of them that went straight from high school to the NBA. But here's a guy, Kobe Bryant, playing with men. A young boy playing basketball with professional men. I can imagine when he showed up, the Lakers, the guys, they said, look at this rookie, man, just out of high school. Come on, you got to be kidding. He wants to play with us? But Kobe Bryant was a man that took care of his body. I was trying to think this week of who I could use as an example that took care of his body, that drank right liquids, they ate right, that breathed right, that knew how to sleep right. Kobe Bryant. 5 rings, 5 championships in the NBA. Most valuable player in the NBA, many times. Took his high school team to state championship 4 times. A great basketball player. Not only offense, but his defense. And it all began because how he looked at himself in his body, how he took care of his body, mind over matter. I'm sure a lot of people told Kobe, you can't play in the NBA. You're not gifted yet. You're not talented enough. You're not physically strong enough. And I could hear Kobe Bryant say, yes, I am. No, I don't know what that word means. I can do it. The story goes on that Kobe would stay after practice, and everyone would go home. He would stay there shooting free throws, working on his game, taking care of his body. There's no limit what you can do. And lastly, in these last few minutes I have, in the spiritual aspect of the holistic individual, I thought, who can I use as my spiritual inspiration that could help me understand the importance of taking care of the spirit aspect of your life? And I came up with Billy Graham. Because everybody knows what Billy Graham was. I'm Southern Baptist. So when I went to a Southern Baptist seminary, they talked a lot about it. Billy Graham, who was also Southern Baptist. He grew up in North Carolina, young man, gave his life to the Lord, and he lived to be 100 years old too. And here's a man that wrote many books, preached to millions of people. In fact, I recall when I was at Fresno State, they had a Billy Graham crusade coming to Fresno, the community Fresno, in the stadium. And I had the privilege of singing in the Billy Graham crusade choir. I still remember that. That was the experience. So Billy Graham was an inspiration in my life. A dreamer. One that said, I will get in touch with my God, my formless substance. Now here's a guy, you and I have spirit, born with a spirit, born with a mind, born with a body. But here's a man that took it a step further. He got in touch with the superconscious, the formless substance, and he found it in Jesus Christ. The power of that substance in Jesus Christ, or the power of your spirit as you take it higher and higher and reach that super substance, no limit to what you can accomplish. On this discussion, we looked at 3 men. George Burns, Kobe Bryant, and Billy Graham. All fulfill the holistic individual. God bless you. Don't neglect your mind. Find a definiteness of purpose in your life. Go after it. Reach that dream. Seek that dream. Find that dream. Don't stop dreaming. Send me some emails. Keep in touch with me. God bless you until we see each other or hear from each other once again next week. Blessings.